Welcome, today's story is full of drama. Like and subscribe to stay updated. Let's get started.
I'm 33 years old, and up until a few months ago, I was engaged to my girlfriend of 6 years, Rachel. My younger brother, Ethan, is 31 and has always been the family favorite. To understand the depth of this betrayal and why it hurts so much, I need to share some background about my family and how we got here. Growing up, Ethan could do no wrong in our parents' eyes, while I was constantly punished for the smallest mistakes. This wasn't just sibling rivalry or subtle favoritism. It was glaringly obvious and intense. If Ethan broke something, I'd get blamed. If he started a fight, I'd be grounded. If we both got straight A's, he'd get a new gaming console, while I just got a pat on the back and a reminder to keep up the good work. Our parents, Greg and Paula, always made excuses for their behavior, saying things like, "Ethan is younger, he needs more attention," or "You're the older one, you should know better," or "Ethan is just more sensitive, we have to be careful with him." The constant gaslighting and impossible standards made me feel worthless and unwelcome in my own home. As we got older, the favoritism became even clearer. When I was accepted into a good college on a partial scholarship, my parents barely acknowledged it. But when Ethan chose to attend a local technical school, they threw him a huge celebration and bought him a used Toyota Corolla to get around. Never mind that I had been biking 8 miles each way to my part-time job for years. I moved out as soon as I could to escape the toxic environment. I worked 2 jobs and took out loans to support myself through college, while Ethan dropped out after 1 semester, claiming that school wasn't for him. Our parents fully supported his decision, praising him for knowing himself and not conforming to societal expectations. They even financed his series of failed business ventures over the years. No matter how much distance I put between myself and my family, they always found a way to bring me back. Holiday dinners were filled with subtle insults and backhanded comparisons. "Oh, you're still in that entry-level position? Well, Ethan is thinking of starting another business. He's very entrepreneurial." Never mind that I was building a stable career while Ethan squandered our parents' savings. Despite it all, I tried to maintain a relationship with Ethan. He was still my brother. But it was always one-sided. I would reach out, trying to connect, but he'd ignore me or turn the conversation into a competition. If I got a promotion, suddenly he'd have some big opportunity coming his way. If I started dating someone, he'd inevitably be in a serious relationship too. I met Rachel when I was trying to reconnect with Ethan. She was a friend of one of his short-term girlfriends, and we hit it off right away. Rachel was everything I had ever wanted in a partner. Smart, funny, kind, and incredibly beautiful. Our relationship was everything I had hoped for. For the first time in my life, I felt truly valued and happy. My parents, however, were far from pleased. They made sarcastic comments about how Rachel was out of my league and questioned what she saw in me. Ethan, on the other hand, started showing an unusual interest in my life. He was always asking about Rachel and wanted to know everything about her. At the time, I was just relieved that he seemed to care about something in my life. Looking back, I see the red flags. Rachel and I moved in together after a year of dating, and it was amazing. We both had solid careers, traveled, and discussed our future together. I began to believe that I could finally have the life I had always dreamed of. A good career, a loving partner, and maybe even children one day. After 5 years of dating, I proposed to Rachel during a quiet dinner at home, delivering a heartfelt speech. I was overjoyed when she said yes. We decided to have a long engagement so we could take our time planning the wedding. We weren't rushing, we had our whole lives ahead of us. Or so I thought. When we told my family about our engagement, their reactions were all over the place. My mother put on a fake smile and said, "Oh, how nice," in a tone that made it clear she didn't mean it. My father barely reacted, mumbling, "Good luck with that," before turning back to his football game. Ethan, on the other hand, congratulated us, but there was something off about his smile. It was almost predatory. At the time, I dismissed it, attributing it to my own insecurities. The next year was filled with wedding planning and the usual work stress. Rachel and I were both working long hours to save up for the wedding and a down payment on a house. We hadn't spent as much time together as we used to, but I figured it was just a phase every couple goes through. Looking back, I should have noticed the signs. Rachel grew more distant, always on her phone. Smiling at texts from people she quickly labeled as friends from work. She started going out more, coming home late, smelling of wine and a cologne I didn't recognize. But I trusted her completely and never considered that she might be cheating. let alone with my own brother. About 6 months ago, Rachel started acting oddly. She was moody, irritated, and constantly nauseous. I was hopeful she might be pregnant, even though we hadn't been trying. We had talked about having kids one day, and I began imagining nursery colors and baby names. Then one night, she sat me down with tears in her eyes and dropped the bomb. She was pregnant, but it wasn't mine. I was stunned. We hadn't been intimate for a while due to our busy schedules, but I never suspected she would cheat, especially not with Ethan. When I asked who the father was, she broke down, barely able to speak, and whispered, "It's Ethan." I stood there frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. The words didn't make sense. They couldn't. "It's Ethan," I repeated, the sound of his name like a knife in my gut. Her face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Finally, she whispered, barely audible, "I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen. It just happened." I shook my head, the disbelief still holding me in a vice grip. How could you do this to me? To us? My voice cracked as the pain began to turn into anger. We've been through so much together. I thought you were the one I could trust, the one who would never hurt me. And now this? She covered her face with her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. "I never wanted to hurt you. Please understand, it's not what you think." I was confused. I was lost, and Ethan, he was there for me when you weren't. Her words hit me like a slap. When I wasn't. I've been working, doing everything for us. I've been here, putting in the effort, and you. I stopped myself, feeling the rage build up inside me. "You were with him behind my back." She nodded, barely able to meet my eyes. "I'm sorry. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I know I've ruined everything, and I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't expect you to understand, but it just happened." I let out a bitter laugh, though it felt like I was choking on it. "You're right. I don't understand. How could I? I gave you everything, and you threw it away for him." I took a step back, the weight of everything crashing down on me. "I don't even know who you are anymore." Her eyes widened in panic as I turned away, pacing. "Please don't say that. Please, I still love you. I never meant for it to go this far." "Love me?" I spun back toward her, my fists clenched. "How can you love someone when you're betraying them like this? How is that even possible?" My voice grew louder, filled with fury. "You don't get to throw around that word. Not after what you've done." She tried to reach for me, but I stepped away. "Please let me fix this," she pleaded. "I'll do anything. I'll make it right. I don't want to lose you." I laughed bitterly again, the sting of her words cutting deeper. "You think you can fix this? After everything? No. You've already made your choice, and so have I. You've lost me. You and Ethan, you both can have each other." She collapsed onto the couch, her sobs racking her body. "Please don't leave me. I'm sorry. I was stupid. I was selfish. But I love you. Please don't go." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. "I can't do this anymore. I can't keep fighting for something that's already broken. You made your choice, and now I have to make mine. I hope Ethan is worth it." I stood there in the middle of the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. Rachel was just a few feet away, looking shattered, her face pale, eyes swollen from crying. But all I could focus on was the betrayal, the deceit that had been hidden behind a smile for so long. She took a step toward me, her voice trembling. "Please just let me explain," she pleaded. "It wasn't what you think. It wasn't supposed to happen this way." She looked down, clearly struggling to find the right words. "It started at the engagement party. Ethan said things to me. He made me feel like you didn't care, like maybe I could do better. He told me I deserved more than what you were giving me, and I was confused." "Confused?" I repeated, my voice laced with disbelief. "Confused about what?" "You were engaged to me, Rachel. We were supposed to be building a life together, and instead you were lying to my face and sleeping with my brother." I could feel the tears threatening to fall, but I refused to let them. I wouldn't let her see how much this was destroying me. Her lips trembled as she stepped closer, her hand reaching out for me. "Please, I'm sorry. I made a horrible mistake. I was weak. It wasn't supposed to go on this long. But I didn't know how to stop it. Ethan, he said all the right things. He made me feel special, wanted like I wasn't being seen. Like you didn't understand me. That's what this is about." I laughed bitterly, feeling like I was about to explode. You felt unseen, so you went behind my back and slept with my brother? And now you want me to feel sorry for you? I shook my head, a dry laugh escaping my throat. You're pathetic. Rachel's eyes welled up with fresh tears, and she reached out again, her voice breaking. I never wanted to hurt you, I swear. I love you. I still love you. It was a mistake, all of it. I was confused. I let my insecurities get the best of me, and Ethan took advantage of that. I stepped back, the anger in me shifting to something darker. Insecurities? I asked coldly. You think your insecurities justify what you did? You destroyed everything, Rachel. Everything we had. And for what? So you could feel good about yourself for a few months? My voice cracked at the end, and I immediately regretted it. But it was too late. The damage was already done. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered, breaking down again. Her voice was barely audible. I thought it was just a phase, but I couldn't stop. I was scared. And Ethan, he made it feel so easy. I wanted to stop, but I didn't know how. You think I should just forgive you? I demanded, my anger flaring again. You've been lying to me for months. Rachel, you betrayed me over and over again. You wore my engagement ring, stood beside me, all the while sleeping with my brother. And now, after everything, you expect me to just forgive you and pretend it never happened? My voice was shaking, but it wasn't from sadness. It was pure fury. I know I don't deserve it, she said, wiping her face with her sleeve. Her words came out in a whisper. But I'm asking you, please, can we fix this? Can we try again? I'll do anything. I love you, and I know I messed up, but please don't leave me. I stood there in silence, my chest heaving as I processed everything she was saying. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had trusted, had betrayed me in the most unforgivable way possible. I could feel my heart cracking, but I couldn't let it break. Not for her. No, I said quietly, my voice steady but filled with disgust. I can't do this anymore. I can't forgive you, Rachel. You've shattered everything. This isn't just a mistake. This was a choice you made over and over again. Her face crumpled, the tears flowing freely now. She collapsed to her knees, reaching out for me one last time. Please don't leave me like this. I was wrong. I swear I'll change. We can fix this together. I shook my head, stepping back further. A strange sense of relief washed over me as I did. I can't fix this. Not with you. Not after what you've done. She looked at me, her eyes wide with disbelief, as if she couldn't understand why I couldn't just move past it. But I knew there was no going back. I stood at the edge of the living room, my body tense, barely able to contain the overwhelming mix of anger and heartbreak. Rachel, still in tears, was sitting on the couch, looking like she didn't know what was coming, still holding on to the hope that I might somehow forgive her. I don't want to hear any more excuses. Rachel, I said, my voice cold and steady. I've heard enough. I've listened to your lies, your justifications, but I can't keep pretending like this didn't happen. I won't. She looked up, her eyes filled with confusion and desperation. What are you saying? Please, I love you. I swear it was a mistake. You know I didn't mean for it to go this far. We can fix this. I shook my head, cutting her off. No, we can't. There's nothing to fix. You've been lying to me for months, hiding behind my trust while sleeping with my brother. How could you do this to me? I gave you everything, and you threw it all away. Rachel stood up now, her hands trembling, her voice breaking. Please, I know I hurt you, but we can work through this. I'll do anything. Just don't send me away like this. The sight of her pleading, knowing what she'd done, was suffocating. You've done enough, I said, the words bitter on my tongue. You've done more than enough, Rachel. Enough. She stepped closer to me, reaching out, her eyes filled with panic. I'm begging you, please don't end it like this. I swear I was confused. I made a mistake, but I can fix it. We can fix it. Just don't kick me out. I stood my ground, my voice unyielding. I don't care about your mistakes anymore. You've had more than enough chances, and you wasted every single one of them. I took a deep breath, pushing down the hurt that was threatening to break through. I want you to pack your things now, and get out of my house. Her face paled as the weight of my words hit her. She opened her mouth to protest, but I raised my hand, silencing her. I don't want to hear any more apologies or excuses. Rachel, just pack your things and leave. I can't look at you anymore. She stepped back, her expression a mix of disbelief and anger now. You're really doing this? After everything we've been through, you're just going to throw me out? Yes, I said, my voice unwavering. You don't get to decide what happens next. You lost that right when you betrayed me. So get out of my house. I don't want you here anymore. Rachel stood frozen for a moment, tears still streaming down her face, her shoulders shaking with sobs. But she didn't move. I could see the struggle in her, trying to hold onto something that was already gone. Please, I never meant to hurt you. I didn't mean for this to happen. She whispered, her voice full of anguish. I shook my head, turning away, unable to look at her any longer. I know, Rachel, you didn't mean to hurt me, but you did. And now it's over. I walked toward the door, my heart pounding in my chest, the finality of the situation sinking in. I didn't look back. Couldn't. After a few moments of silence, I heard her footsteps, slow and hesitant, as she began to gather her things. But the truth was, nothing could fix this. There was no going back from what she had done. As she packed, all I could think about was how much I wished I could erase this pain from my chest. But it was done. She was leaving, and so was everything we had built together. As the door closed behind Rachel, I felt the weight of everything settle over me. The betrayal, the lies, the future I thought we were building. It was all gone. But there was still one person I needed to confront. I dialed Ethan's number, my hands shaking with rage. The phone rang once before he picked up. Hello, he said casually, as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't just destroyed my life. Ethan, I said, my voice cold. We need to talk. There was a long pause on the other end. Then he sighed. Look, man, I don't know what's going on. But, cut the crap. Ethan, I snapped. I know everything. I know about you and Rachel. The line went silent. Then he spoke again, his tone defensive. Okay, I screwed up. But it was a mistake, all right? It didn't mean anything. She came to me when she was drunk. And, don't you dare try to downplay it, I interrupted, my grip tightening on the phone. You knew exactly what you were doing. You knew how much she meant to me, and you went there anyway. Ethan let out an exaggerated sigh. Look, man, I'm sorry, all right? But maybe if you'd been a better fiancé, she wouldn't have come to me. My blood ran cold at his words. My breath hitched in my chest as anger flooded every inch of my body. I didn't know what I had expected from him, but it sure as hell wasn't that. Excuse me? I growled, my voice low and dangerous. You heard me, Ethan shot back, his tone now defiant. If you were actually there for her, maybe she wouldn't have turned to me. She was looking for someone who actually paid attention to her needs. That was it. Every ounce of restraint I had been holding on to snapped in half. You think you can just talk to me like that after everything you've done? I shouted, my pulse pounding in my ears. Calm down, Ethan said, but I could hear the unease in his voice now. Look, man, I didn't want this to happen. I don't care what you wanted, I spat. You betrayed me, Ethan. You destroyed everything I had. You think you're going to walk away from this without consequences? Ethan tried to laugh it off, but it sounded forced. Oh, come on. Don't be so dramatic. Dramatic? I repeated, my voice rising. You slept with my fiancée. You got her pregnant. And you want to call me dramatic? You're a joke, Ethan. You've always been a joke. Before he could respond, I ended the call, throwing my phone onto the couch. I couldn't stand to hear his voice anymore. Later that evening, I received a call from my mother. I hesitated for a moment before answering, knowing exactly where this was going. Marvin, she said, her voice strained. We need to talk about this. Ethan explained everything, and I cut her off. He explained everything? Did he explain how he's been sleeping with Rachel behind my back? Did he tell you about the baby? Yes, she said softly. He told us. But Marvin, he's your brother. Family makes mistakes and we have to forgive each other. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Family? You think this is about family? He betrayed me in the worst way possible, and you want me to forgive him? Marvin, my father interjected, his voice calm but firm. This isn't just about you. Ethan's made mistakes, but he's still your brother. You need to move past this. I let out a bitter laugh. Move past this. Are you serious? This isn't some minor argument. He destroyed my relationship, my future, and you're telling me to just get over it? Marvin, my mother said, her voice pleading. We're a family. We need to stick together. I shook my head, even though they couldn't see me. You've always chosen him, haven't you? No matter what he does, no matter how much he screws up, you always take his side. Well, not this time. I'm done. You can have him, but you don't get to have me too. Don't say that, my mother whispered, her voice breaking. Please don't say that. But I had already made up my mind. Goodbye, I said, and hung up. The days that followed were a blur of anger, heartbreak, and frustration. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls, messages, voicemails from my parents, from Ethan, even from some extended family members I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone seemed to have an opinion, and most of them were the same: forgive and move on. But forgiveness felt impossible. Every time I tried to sleep, I saw Rachel's tear-streaked face, heard Ethan's smug voice. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back in that living room, feeling the walls of my world collapse around me. The betrayal wasn't just a wound. It was a storm, raging and relentless. 3 days after the call with my parents, they showed up at my apartment unannounced. The moment I opened the door, my mother tried to step inside, but I blocked her path. "What are you doing here?" I asked coldly. "Marvin, we need to talk," she said, her eyes wide with desperation. My father stood behind her, his face stern and unyielding. "I already said everything I needed to," I replied, gripping the door tightly. "Marvin," my father said, his voice low and commanding, "this has gone far enough. You're acting like a child. We're here to fix this." "Fix this?" I laughed bitterly. "You think you can fix this? You think you can just show up and make it all go away? Ethan slept with Rachel. He got her pregnant. And you want me to just forgive and forget? You're being unreasonable," my father snapped. "This is your family. Families forgive each other." "No," I said firmly. "Families don't betray each other. Families don't stab you in the back and expect you to smile about it. Whatever this is, it isn't family." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Marvin, please. You're tearing this family apart. Your father and I can't take this anymore. Your brother." "Don't you dare defend him," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "Don't you dare stand here and try to make me feel guilty for this. He did this. Rachel did this. Not me." My father stepped forward, his face red with anger. "You're being selfish. You're not thinking about anyone but yourself." "Selfish?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You think I'm selfish because I won't let you sweep this under the rug? Because I won't let you gaslight me into believing this is somehow my fault? No, I've had enough. You can keep Ethan, but I'm done." "Marvin, don't do this," my mother pleaded, her voice cracking. "You'll regret it. One day you'll see that family is all that matters." I shook my head. "No, Mom. Respect and loyalty matter. And I've never had either from you." I slammed the door shut before they could say anything else. For a moment, I leaned against it, my chest heaving with the weight of what I had just done. I could hear them arguing on the other side, their voices muffled but heated. Finally, they left. Over the next few weeks, the silence from my family was deafening. But the drama wasn't over. Ethan, in true fashion, decided to escalate things. He posted a long rant on social media, painting himself as the victim. He claimed I was jealous of his happiness with Rachel and that I was unable to let go of the past. The post gained traction, with dozens of likes and supportive comments from people who didn't know the full story. "Ethan, you're so brave for sharing this," one comment read. "Family fights are hard, but love will win in the end," said another. It was infuriating, seeing strangers cheer him on, praise him for his strength when he had been the one to destroy everything. It made my blood boil. I wanted to respond, to tell the truth, but I knew it wouldn't matter. People believed what they wanted to believe, and I wasn't going to waste my energy trying to convince them otherwise. A week later, I received a call from Rachel's younger sister, Emily. She had always been kind to me, and I was surprised to see her number pop up. "Marvin," she said softly when I answered. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I had no idea what Rachel and Ethan were doing. If I'd known, I would have told you." Her words caught me off guard. "Thanks, Emily," I said, "but it doesn't change anything." "I know," she replied, "but I thought you should know that Rachel, she's not happy. She thought she could build something with Ethan, but she's already regretting it. She said he's immature, irresponsible. She's scared about the baby." I laughed bitterly. "Well, they deserve each other," maybe Emily said, "but I wanted you to know that not everyone in her life supports what she did. I don't. And I'm here if you need someone to talk to." Her kindness was unexpected, but it didn't take away the pain. "Thanks, Emily," I said quietly. "I appreciate it." Emily's words lingered in my mind for days. Rachel regretting her choices didn't bring me any satisfaction. If anything, it made the betrayal sting even more. She had destroyed my life chasing something she wasn't even sure she wanted. And Ethan, he had always been reckless, but this was a new low, even for him. I decided I needed space. Not just from my family, but from everything. The memories, the places, the constant reminders. I couldn't stay in the same city any longer. I started looking into job transfers and stumbled across an opportunity in Denver. It wasn't too far, but far enough to feel like a fresh start. A week later, I sat across from my boss, explaining my situation. I didn't go into the messy details, just enough to let him know I needed a change. "Marvin," he said, leaning back in his chair, "you've been a great asset to the team. If this is what you need, I'll support it. Consider the transfer approved." Relief washed over me. For the first time in months, it felt like I was taking control of my life again. As I packed up my apartment, my cousin Brenda came over to help. She'd been one of the few family members to stick by me through all of this, and I was grateful for her support. "You're doing the right thing," she said as she folded a box of clothes. "Getting away from all this drama will give you the chance to rebuild." "I hope so," I replied, taping a box shut. "I just need to breathe, you know? Being here, it's suffocating." She nodded, her expression thoughtful. "You know, Aunt Karen called Mom the other day. She tore into your parents. Told them they were reaping what they sowed by always favoring Ethan. That caught my attention. Aunt Karen wasn't one to hold back. But hearing someone in the family actually call out my parents felt validating." "What did your mom say?" I asked. "She agreed with Karen," Brenda said with a small smile. "And she told me to tell you that you're not alone. Not everyone in the family is on their side." It was a small comfort, but I clung to it. Knowing there were people who saw through my parents and Ethan's manipulations made the weight on my chest a little lighter. The day I left was bittersweet. As I loaded the last box into my car, I took one final look at my apartment building. This was where I had built so many memories with Rachel, memories that were now tainted. But it was also where I had started to find myself again, piece by broken piece. Driving out of the city felt like shedding old skin. The farther I got, the lighter I felt. By the time I crossed into Denver, I was ready to start over. The next few months were a blur of adjustment and healing. My new job kept me busy, and I threw myself into work, determined to rebuild my life. Therapy became a regular part of my routine, helping me untangle the mess Rachel and Ethan had left behind. One evening, while scrolling through my phone, I noticed a new message request on social media. It was from Maria, Rachel's younger sister. "I just wanted to check in," the message read. "I heard you moved. I hope you're doing okay. For what it's worth, Rachel and Ethan are having problems. She's realizing he's not what she thought he was." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "Thanks for letting me know. But I'm not interested in their drama anymore. I'm moving on." "Good for you," Maria replied. "You deserve better. Just know that not everyone in their orbit agrees with what they did." I didn't respond again, but her words stayed with me. Rachel and Ethan's so-called perfect relationship was already crumbling, and I wasn't surprised. They had built it on lies and betrayal. It was only a matter of time before it collapsed. One evening, while I was out for a run, my phone buzzed with a call from Brenda. "You're not going to believe this," she said, her voice dripping with amusement. "Rachel cheated on Ethan." I stopped in my tracks. "What?" "Yeah," she continued. "She met some guy through work. Apparently, Ethan's devastated, and now Mom and Dad are scrambling to clean up the mess." I let out a bitter laugh. "Of course they are. They'll probably still blame me somehow." "Probably," Brenda said. "But who cares? You're out of it now." She was right. For the first time, I truly felt detached from their chaos. Their drama was no longer my problem. Time passed, and life slowly started to feel normal again. I made new friends, explored Denver, and even started dating casually. It wasn't easy letting someone in after what had happened, but I was taking it one step at a time. Then, one day, I met Elise. She was kind, funny, and understood my guardedness without pushing me. We started out as friends, but over time, something deeper grew between us. She showed me that love didn't have to be painful, that it could be safe and supportive. Years later, I stood at the altar, waiting for Elise. The chapel was small and intimate, just the way we wanted. As she walked down the aisle, radiant in her dress, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. This was my new beginning. The past was behind me. Rachel and Ethan were just memories now, painful lessons that had shaped me but no longer defined me. With Elise, I had found what I thought I had lost forever: trust, hope, and a future worth looking forward to. As the ceremony began, I glanced at my closest friends, the family I had chosen, and knew I had made it through the storm. This was my life now, and I was finally free. The ceremony went beautifully. As Elise and I exchanged vows, the weight of everything I had been through felt like a distant memory. Her words were heartfelt and genuine, and as I spoke mine, I realized just how far I had come. This wasn't just a marriage. It was the start of a life where I was truly seen and loved for who I was. After the ceremony, as we walked hand in hand through the reception hall, I caught glimpses of our closest friends and the new family I had built. Brenda had flown in, smiling proudly from her table. Paul, my best man, gave me a thumbs up, his usual goofy grin plastered across his face. These were the people who had stood by me, who had believed in me when I thought no one else would. Months passed, and Elise and I settled into married life. It was peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos I had left behind. We spent our days building a home together, exploring the city, and dreaming about the future. For the first time, I felt like I had control over my life, like I was writing my own story. But the past wasn't completely done with me. One afternoon, while sorting through the mail, I found an unmarked envelope addressed to me. Inside was a handwritten letter. The familiar scrawl made my stomach turn. It was from Ethan. "Marvin, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to say this. I screwed up. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. Rachel and it didn't work out. She left me, said I wasn't what she needed. I guess I deserve that after what I did to you. I've been thinking about everything that happened, and I realize now how much I hurt you. I was selfish, jealous. I don't know why I did what I did, but it was wrong. I lost my brother, and it's my fault. I wish I could take it back, but I know I can't. I hope you're happy now. I heard you got married. I hope she treats you the way you deserve. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. Ethan." I stared at the letter for a long time, my emotions swirling. Part of me wanted to rip it up, to throw it away and forget I had ever seen it. But another part of me, smaller, quieter, felt a strange sense of closure. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Ethan's apology, whether genuine or not, didn't change what had happened. But it didn't matter anymore. I had moved on, and his words were just another reminder of how far I'd come. Elise and I eventually left Denver, moving to a quiet suburb to start the next chapter of our lives. We adopted a dog, a goofy Labrador named Max, and spent our weekends hiking and hosting dinners with friends. Life felt full, meaningful, and free of the shadows that once loomed over me. Occasionally, I'd hear updates about my family through Brenda. My parents were still trying to piece things together. Their relationship with Ethan strained after his life continued to spiral. Rachel had moved away, completely out of the picture, and Ethan was left to deal with the consequences of his choices. It wasn't my concern anymore. Years later, Elise and I welcomed our first child, a beautiful baby girl we named Sophie. Holding her in my arms for the first time, I felt a wave of emotions: love, joy, and a determination to give her the life I never had. She would grow up knowing she was valued, supported, and loved unconditionally. As I looked at Elise, smiling through tears, I knew I had finally built the family I had always wanted. Not the one I was born into, but the one I had chosen, the one I had fought for. The past no longer haunted me. It was a part of my story, but it didn't define me. My life was my own now, and it was beautiful. Life with Elise and Sophie became everything I had hoped for. Our days were filled with laughter, milestones, and the kind of quiet contentment I had once thought impossible. Watching Sophie take her first steps, hearing her first words, and seeing her bond with Max brought a joy I couldn't have imagined years ago when I was stuck in the whirlwind of betrayal and anger. Occasionally, I'd reflect on the past, not out of bitterness, but as a reminder of how far I had come. My therapist had once told me that healing isn't about forgetting the pain but about learning to carry it in a way that doesn't weigh you down. That advice stuck with me, and over time the weight lessened. One day, as I was sorting through old boxes in the attic, I came across an album I hadn't seen in years. It was filled with photos from my childhood. Family vacations, birthdays, moments that now felt like they belonged to another life. I paused at a picture of Ethan and me as kids, both grinning ear to ear with ice cream dripping down our hands. For a fleeting moment, I felt a pang of sadness for what could have been. For the brother I had lost, not through death, but through his choices. I closed the album and set it aside. The man in those photos wasn't the same person who had betrayed me, and the person I was now wasn't the same as the boy in the pictures. We had both changed, for better or worse, and it was time to leave those memories where they belonged, in the past. Years passed, and life continued to move forward. Sophie grew into a curious, spirited child who loved to paint and ask endless questions about the world. Elise and I decided to expand our family, and soon Sophie had a younger brother, Noah, who brought a new layer of joy and chaos to our lives. By the time Sophie was 8 and Noah was 5, I had firmly established myself in my career, and Elise was thriving in hers. We had built a life that felt solid, unshakable, and filled with love. We didn't dwell on the family I had left behind, but I didn't completely block them out either. Brenda kept me updated occasionally, and I appreciated her discretion in keeping it brief. One day, as I was playing catch with Noah in the backyard, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. "Hi, Marvin. It's Mom. I know it's been years, but I just wanted to reach out and see how you're doing. We miss you. Your father and I are getting older, and we'd love to reconnect. Please let us know if you'd be willing to talk." I stared at the message for a long time. It wasn't the first time she had reached out, but it had been years since the last attempt. Part of me felt a flicker of guilt, but it was quickly drowned out by the memories of their excuses, their favoritism, their refusal to take accountability. I deleted the message without replying. My silence wasn't out of spite, it was out of self-preservation. I had built a life worth protecting, and I wasn't going to let anyone jeopardize it, not even my own parents. A few months later, I received a call from Brenda. She rarely called, so I knew it had to be important. "Hey, Brenda," I said, stepping away from the kids, who were playing in the living room. "What's up?" There was a pause on the other end of the line before she spoke. "It's Ethan," she said quietly. "He's in the hospital. Serious." I felt a mix of emotions: shock, sadness, and a strange sense of distance. "What happened?" "Car accident," she explained. "He's stable now, but it was close. Marvin, he's asking for you." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. "I don't know if I can, Brenda. After everything." "I get it," she said gently, "but I thought you should know." We hung up, and I spent the rest of the day wrestling with my thoughts. Ethan's betrayal had left scars, but was I ready to face him now? After all this time? Did I even owe him that? The next morning, I made my decision. I wasn't ready to see Ethan, but I did send a letter through Brenda. It was short, to the point, but genuine. "Ethan, I heard about the accident. I'm glad you're stable and recovering. I hope you take this as an opportunity to reflect and make better choices for yourself moving forward. While I can't be there in person, I wish you a full and speedy recovery." Marvin. Brenda later told me that Ethan read the letter in silence, tears streaming down his face. He didn't say much, but she said it seemed to mean something to him. That was enough for me. Years later, as I sat on the porch watching Sophie and Noah chase Max around the yard, Elise came out and handed me a cup of coffee. She sat beside me, her hand resting on mine. "You okay?" she asked, her voice warm and steady. I smiled at her, then looked back at our children, at the life we had built together. "Yeah," I said softly, "I'm okay." For the first time in years, I truly meant it. The wounds of the past hadn't disappeared, but they no longer defined me. I had found peace, love, and a future worth living for, and that was all I needed. As the years rolled by, the events of the past began to fade into distant memories. My family, Elise, Sophie, Noah, and even Max, became the center of my world. The life we had built together wasn't just a testament to perseverance. It was a testament to love, healing, and the power of choosing happiness. One afternoon, as I sat in my home office going through some old papers, I came across the letter I had sent to Ethan after his accident. Brenda had returned it to me a year later, saying Ethan wanted me to have it back as a reminder of the olive branch I had extended. I held the paper for a moment, feeling a mix of emotions. Though I never reconnected with Ethan or my parents, I had long since let go of the anger. Their absence in my life wasn't a wound anymore. It was a choice I stood by, one that allowed me to grow and thrive without their toxic influence. The turning point for me came on a sunny Sunday morning when Elise and I were sitting at the breakfast table, watching Sophie and Noah debate what kind of pancakes they wanted. It was such a simple, mundane moment, but it filled me with a profound sense of gratitude. "Do you ever think about them?" Elise asked softly, breaking the comfortable silence. I didn't need to ask who she meant. Sometimes I admitted, but not in the way I used to. It's more like a story I read a long time ago, something that happened to someone else. Elise reached for my hand, her touch grounding me. "I'm proud of you, Marvin," she said. "You've come so far." I smiled at her, squeezing her hand gently. "Couldn't have done it without you." As Sophie grew older, she began to ask questions about my side of the family. I knew the day would come when I'd have to explain the absence of grandparents and an uncle in her life. When she was 12, she finally asked, her curiosity too strong to ignore. "Dad, how come we don't see your family?" she asked one evening as we sat on the porch watching the sunset. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Sophie, sometimes family doesn't treat each other the way they should. And when that happens, you have to make hard choices to protect yourself." Her brow furrowed. "Did they hurt you?" "In a way," I said honestly, "but it's okay now. I have you, Noah, and your mom. That's the family I chose, and it's all I need." She nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Well, I think our family is perfect." I smiled, feeling my chest tighten with emotion. "Me too, kiddo." As Noah grew, he inherited Sophie's curiosity. By the time he was 10, he was asking similar questions, though with less intensity. I gave him the same honest answers, emphasizing the importance of love, respect, and the family we chose to surround ourselves with. Elise and I made it a point to focus on creating a positive, loving environment for our children. They didn't need to carry the burden of my past, and I refused to let it define their future. We traveled as a family, explored the world, and made memories that overshadowed anything I had left behind. Decades later, as I sat in the audience watching Sophie graduate from college, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride. She was poised, confident, and compassionate, the embodiment of everything Elise and I had worked so hard to nurture. Noah, now in high school, sat beside me, cheering for his sister with an energy only a teenager could muster. Elise leaned over and whispered, "We did good, didn't we?" I nodded, unable to suppress the smile spreading across my face. "Yeah, we did." As the years passed, I found myself reflecting on life less out of regret and more out of gratitude. The experiences I had endured, the pain, the betrayal, the heartbreak, had shaped me, but they didn't define me. What defined me was the love I shared with Elise, the joy my children brought into my life, and the peace I had found in letting go of the past. One evening, as Elise and I sat on the porch of our home, watching the sun dip below the horizon, she turned to me and asked, "Do you ever wish things had been different with your family?" I thought about it for a moment before shaking my head. "No, I think things happened the way they were supposed to. It wasn't easy, but it led me here, to you, to this life, and I wouldn't trade it for anything." She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. "Me neither." The sun disappeared, leaving the sky painted in shades of orange and pink, and for the first time in my life, I felt whole as time moved on. The chapters of my life unfolded quietly but beautifully. Sophie graduated with honors, and Noah followed a few years later, pursuing his passion for engineering. Elise and I found ourselves entering a new stage of life, adjusting to an empty nest. The house that once echoed with laughter and chaos now held a serene calm, filled with memories of family dinners, bedtime stories, and late-night conversations. We decided to travel more, rediscovering the world together. From the lavender fields of Provence to the bustling markets of Marrakesh, each destination brought us closer, reminding us of the bond we had built over the years. Every step of the journey felt like a celebration of the life we had created, a life that was uniquely ours. One day, while sorting through some old photographs in the attic, I came across a box labeled Marvin's Family. Inside were relics of a time long gone, pictures of my parents in their younger years, Ethan and I as kids building snow forts, and even a few holiday snapshots. The box had remained untouched for decades, but instead of bitterness, I felt a sense of closure. Elise walked in, holding 2 cups of tea. She noticed the photos in my hands and sat beside me. "That's your family?" she asked softly. I nodded, smiling faintly. "Yeah, The strange. Looking at these now, it feels like a different life. Do you miss them? She asked gently. I thought for a moment before answering. Not really. I think I miss the idea of what they could have been. But the reality? No. I'm at peace with it. Elise rested her head on my shoulder, her warmth grounding me. You've come a long way, Marvin. I agreed, placing the lid back on the box. And I wouldn't trade what we have for anything. We left the box in the attic, a chapter closed, and returned to the life we had built together. Years later, as Elise and I celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary surrounded by friends, Sophie and Noah took turns giving speeches. Sophie spoke about the love and strength she had witnessed growing up, while Noah shared humorous anecdotes about family vacations and lessons learned from me. When it was my turn to speak, I looked out at the faces of the people who had become my chosen family. Brenda sat at a table near the front, smiling with her husband by her side. Sophie held her daughter, our first grandchild, while Noah raised a toast. I don't have a long speech prepared, I began, my voice steady but thick with emotion. But I just want to say thank you to Elise for being my partner in every sense of the word, to Sophie and Noah for teaching me more about love than I ever thought possible, and to everyone here for being a part of this journey. Life hasn't always been easy, but standing here today, I know it's been worth every step. The room erupted in applause, and as I sat down, Elise leaned over and whispered, "You did good." "So did you," I replied, squeezing her hand. As the years turned into decades, life slowed down but never lost its vibrancy. Sophie and Noah built families of their own, and our home became a hub for holidays and celebrations. Watching my grandchildren play in the yard, I often thought about the choices I had made, the people I had left behind, and the life I had embraced. There was no regret, only gratitude. One evening, as Elise and I sat on the porch, the stars shining brightly above, she asked me, "Do you ever wonder what they would think if they could see you now?" I smiled, taking her hand in mine. "I don't think about it much anymore. What matters is what I think, and I think we've built something incredible." She rested her head against my shoulder, and we sat in comfortable silence, the hum of crickets filling the air. The past had shaped me, but it didn't define me. My family, Elise, Sophie, Noah, and everyone we had brought into our lives was my legacy. And as the night deepened, I felt a profound sense of peace, knowing I had found my place in the world, surrounded by the people I loved. The story of betrayal and loss that once consumed me was now just a distant memory, a chapter long since closed. What remained was a life well lived, filled with love, laughter, and the quiet joy of knowing I had made it through the storm to the light on the other side. As the years turned into a tapestry of memories, I found myself reflecting less on what had gone wrong in the past and more on the incredible journey that had brought me here. Life had given me a second chance, a chance to choose happiness, build a family, and discover a kind of love that wasn't conditional or fleeting. One summer evening, as Sophie and Noah visited with their families, the house was alive with laughter and energy. The grandkids chased Max, now slower but still spirited, around the backyard. Sophie's daughter, Emma, proudly showed me a drawing she had made of the family. It was a simple sketch, but it captured the essence of what we had built together. Happiness, unity, and love. "Is that me?" I asked, pointing to a figure with glasses and a big smile. Emma nodded enthusiastically. "That's you, Grandpa. You're the happiest one." Her words struck a chord. The happiest one. She didn't know the struggles I had faced to get here, and she didn't need to. All she saw was the person I had become, a loving father, a devoted husband, and a doting grandfather. That was enough. Not long after, Sophie pulled me aside as we cleared the dinner table. "Dad," she began hesitantly, "there's something I've been wondering." "What is it, sweetheart?" I asked, setting down a stack of plates. "Do you ever think about reconnecting with your family? Your parents, Ethan?" Her tone was gentle, but I could see the curiosity in her eyes. I leaned against the counter, taking a deep breath. "I used to think about it a lot," I admitted, "but over time, I realized that sometimes letting go is the only way to move forward. I don't hate them anymore. I don't feel angry, but I also don't feel the need to have them in my life." She nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I guess I've always been curious about them, but I get it. You've created something amazing here. That's what matters." I smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're right. This is what matters. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. A few years later, I received a letter from Brenda. It was brief but filled with news about the family I had left behind. My parents had grown frail with age, and Ethan was struggling with his health and finances. Rachel had long since disappeared from their lives, leaving behind nothing but broken promises. Brenda didn't ask me to reach out. She simply wanted me to know where things stood. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. There was no anger or sadness, just a quiet acceptance. The people I had once called family were living the lives they had chosen, just as I was living mine. I felt no need to revisit those old wounds. Decades later, as Elise and I celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary, we found ourselves surrounded by generations of family and friends. Sophie and Noah gave heartfelt speeches, their words filled with gratitude and admiration for the life we had built. The grandkids played under the twinkling lights strung across the yard, their laughter filling the air. As I sat beside Elise, holding her hand, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The road to this moment hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every struggle, every tear, every hard choice. This was my legacy, a family bound not by obligation, but by love. One evening, years later, I sat alone on the porch, a warm cup of tea in my hands. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The house was quiet, Elise resting inside, the kids and grandkids scattered across the country, living their own full lives. In the stillness, I thought about the journey. The heartbreak that had once consumed me was now just a faint echo, a reminder of the strength it had taken to move forward. I had chosen peace, love, and a life that was truly my own. And for that, I was grateful. A breeze rustled through the trees, carrying with it a sense of calm. I took a deep breath and smiled. The past had shaped me, but it no longer defined me. My story was one of resilience, love, and the power of choosing joy. And in that quiet moment, I knew I had lived a life well worth living. Years passed, and Elise and I embraced the quiet rhythms of our later years together. Our home became a place of memories and comfort, a refuge where every corner carried echoes of laughter, love, and resilience. Sophie and Noah, now with families of their own, visited often, bringing with them the warmth and joy of their children, our grandchildren. One winter evening, as the first snow began to fall, Sophie called with unexpected news. "Dad," she began, her voice hesitant, "I've been contacted by someone claiming to be Uncle Ethan." I froze, the name hitting me like a sudden chill. "Ethan?" I repeated, my voice calm but guarded. "What did he say?" "He reached out through social media. He didn't ask for much, just wanted to know how you're doing. He said he regretted everything and wanted a chance to explain himself." There was a long pause as I considered her words. Over the years, I had moved past the anger and betrayal, but hearing Ethan's name brought a rush of old emotions. Confusion, sadness, and a faint flicker of curiosity. "What do you think, Dad?" Sophie asked gently. "Do you want to talk to him?" I sighed, looking out the window at the snow blanketing the world in white. "I don't know," I admitted. "It's been so long. I don't even know what I'd say." A few days later, after much thought and a long conversation with Elise, I decided to write Ethan a letter. I wasn't ready for a face-to-face meeting, but I felt it was time to close that chapter fully. "Ethan, I've heard from Sophie that you've been trying to reach out. It's been decades since we last spoke, and a lot has changed in that time. First, I want you to know that I've moved on. The pain and betrayal that once defined our relationship no longer control me. I've built a life I'm proud of, surrounded by people who love and support me unconditionally. I appreciate that you've taken the time to reflect on your actions and the choices you made. I hope you've found a way to grow and create something meaningful for yourself. That said, I'm not looking to reopen old wounds. My life is full, and I don't feel the need to revisit what's already behind me. I wish you peace, Ethan, and I hope you found a path that brings you happiness and fulfillment. Take care." Marvin. I sent the letter through Sophie, who promised to deliver it without adding her own commentary. It felt cathartic, like a weight I hadn't realized I was still carrying had finally been lifted. Months later, Sophie told me Ethan had written back. His reply was simple, just a few lines of gratitude. "Marvin, thank you for your letter. I don't deserve your kindness, but I appreciate it more than I can say. I'm glad you found peace and happiness. You deserve it. I hope someday you'll be willing to hear from me again. But if not, I understand. Wishing you all the best." Ethan, I read the letter once and tucked it away in a drawer. I didn't feel the need to respond, but I appreciated the closure. Ethan's life was his own to live, just as mine was mine. In the years that followed, life continued to unfold in beautiful, simple ways. Elise and I celebrated milestone anniversaries, welcomed more grandchildren into the world, and supported Sophie and Noah as they navigated the joys and challenges of parenthood. One summer, as we sat around a campfire during a family vacation, Noah asked me a question that caught me off guard. "Dad, what's the most important lesson you've learned in life?" The crackling fire cast flickering shadows on the faces of my children and grandchildren, all waiting for my answer. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "The most important lesson?" I said slowly. "It's this life will knock you down, and people will hurt you in ways you never imagined. But what defines you isn't the pain you endure. It's how you choose to rise from it. You have to decide what kind of life you want to build, and sometimes that means letting go of people and things that hold you back. But if you keep moving forward, if you surround yourself with love and kindness, you'll find that the life you create is worth every hardship." Noah nodded, his eyes thoughtful, and Sophie gave me a warm smile. The moment felt profound, a passing of wisdom from one generation to the next. As Elise and I grew older, we found ourselves slowing down but never losing the joy of discovery. We traveled less, spent more time in the garden, and cherished every visit from our children and grandchildren. Life was quieter, but it was full. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Elise took my hand. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" she asked, her voice soft. "All the time," I said, smiling, "and I wouldn't change a thing." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The life I had built, the family I had nurtured, and the love I had found with Elise, all of it was a testament to resilience and the power of choosing happiness. The years continued to pass with a quiet grace. Life became a collection of cherished moments, watching our grandchildren grow, celebrating birthdays and anniversaries, and finding joy in the everyday simplicity of being together. The hustle of earlier years gave way to peaceful mornings on the porch, long walks through the garden, and evenings filled with storytelling for the grandkids. Sophie and Noah were thriving, raising their own children with the love and care that Elise and I had worked so hard to model. Their visits were frequent and filled our home with laughter and energy. Watching them navigate life with strength and compassion reminded me that the struggles I had endured weren't in vain. The lessons I had learned were now part of a legacy I was proud to leave behind. One spring morning, as Elise and I sipped coffee on the porch, I noticed her staring out at the blooming flowers with a serene smile. "What's on your mind?" I asked, reaching for her hand. She turned to me, her eyes filled with warmth. "I was just thinking about how lucky we are. After everything we've been through, to have this, it feels like a gift." I squeezed her hand gently. "It is a gift, one we built together." She leaned her head against my shoulder, and we sat in comfortable silence, the world around us coming to life with the sounds of birds and the rustling of the wind through the trees. As I entered my late 80s, I found myself reflecting more on the journey of my life, the moments of joy and heartbreak, the choices I had made, and the people who had shaped me. All of it felt like pieces of a puzzle that had come together to create a picture of resilience and love. One day, Sophie visited with her eldest son, Michael, who had just graduated college. As we sat in the living room, Michael asked a question that made me smile. "Grandpa," he began, his voice filled with curiosity, "what advice would you give to someone starting their life?" I leaned back in my chair, my hands resting on the arms, and thought for a moment. "Life is going to throw challenges your way," I said. "People will hurt you, and you'll face moments where it feels like the world is against you. But the most important thing is to keep moving forward. Choose kindness even when it's hard. Surround yourself with people who lift you up. And never forget that the life you build is yours. Make it one you're proud of." Michael nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Thanks, Grandpa. I'll remember that." As the years continued, Elise and I began to slow down even more. Our children insisted we take it easy, and Sophie and Noah often joked about who would take care of us first. We resisted at first, not wanting to give up the independence we cherished, but eventually, we moved into a smaller home closer to Sophie's family. Our days were filled with visits from loved ones, quiet afternoons in the garden, and evenings reminiscing about the life we had shared. Elise's laughter remained the most comforting sound in my world, and her presence was a constant reminder of the love that had carried me through. One summer evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the fields, Elise and I sat on the porch holding hands. She turned to me, her eyes twinkling with the light of 1,000 shared memories. "Do you ever think about how we got here?" she asked softly. "Every day," I replied, my voice steady. "And every day, I'm grateful we made it through." She smiled, her grip tightening on my hand. "Me too." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with a lifetime of love, triumph, and the quiet contentment of knowing we had built something beautiful together. When Elise passed peacefully in her sleep a few years later, surrounded by family, my heart broke in ways I couldn't describe. She had been my anchor, my partner, my everything. But even in my grief, I felt an overwhelming gratitude for the life we had shared. She had taught me what it meant to love unconditionally, and her legacy lived on in our children, our grandchildren, and the countless lives she had touched. In my final years, I often found myself sitting by the window watching the world go by. The house was quieter now, but it was filled with memories that brought me comfort. My children visited frequently, bringing their families, and the house would come alive with laughter and love once again. One day, as I sat with Sophie, she asked me, "Dad, do you have any regrets?" I shook my head, a small smile on my lips. "None that matter," I said. "I've lived a full life, Sophie. I've loved deeply. I've learned from my mistakes, and I've built something I'm proud of. That's all anyone can ask for." She nodded, her eyes glistening with emotion. "You've been an amazing dad," she said softly. "And you've been an amazing daughter," I replied, my voice thick with love. "You and Noah, you're my greatest accomplishments." When my time finally came, I felt no fear. I had lived a life filled with love, resilience, and meaning. As I closed my eyes for the last time, I thought of Elise, waiting for me with that radiant smile. I thought of the family we had built, the love we had shared, and the peace I had found in letting go of the past. And as the world faded, I knew I had truly lived. Though my physical journey came to an end, the legacy of love and resilience I left behind carried on. My family honored the values I had lived by: kindness, strength, and the importance of choosing the life you want to build. After my passing, Sophie and Noah sat together on the porch of the home I had shared with Elise. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, just as it had so many times during my life. They reminisced about the lessons I had taught them and the memories we had created as a family. "You know," Sophie began, her voice filled with emotion, "Dad never let the past define him. He faced so much, but he always moved forward. He taught us that happiness isn't something you find. It's something you build." Noah nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "He did, and he built something incredible. Look at us, our families, our lives. It all started with him and Mom." They sat in silence for a while, letting the cool evening breeze wash over them. Finally, Sophie spoke again. "I think we should go through his journals. He always said he kept them not for himself but for us, for when we were ready to understand his journey." Noah smiled. "I'd like that. I think it's time." As they sifted through my old journals in the following weeks, Sophie and Noah discovered pieces of me they hadn't fully known. The pages were filled with reflections on life, love, and the challenges I had faced. I had written about my heartbreak, my struggles, and the triumphs that came from choosing to move forward. But most of all, the journals were a testament to the joy I had found in my family and the love that had sustained me. One entry stood out to Sophie, written shortly after Elise and I had moved into our smaller home near her family today. I watched Sophie's children playing in the yard, their laughter filling the air. For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness for the life I left behind, the family I was born into but could never truly belong to. But then I looked at Elise, at Sophie, at Noah, and I realized that I didn't leave anything behind. I built something new, something better, and that's what matters. Love isn't about who you're born to, it's about who you choose to share your life with. Sophie read the passage aloud to Noah, her voice trembling. "He really did build something amazing," she said softly. "He did," Noah agreed, his eyes glistening. "And it's up to us to carry it forward." Years later, as Sophie and Noah gathered with their children and grandchildren for a family reunion, the spirit of my journey was alive in every laugh, every shared story, and every embrace. The values I had instilled in them had become the foundation of their lives, shaping a family built on love and resilience. One of Noah's daughters, Emily, approached Sophie during the reunion. "Aunt Sophie," she began, holding up a photo of me and Elise from decades earlier. "What was Grandpa like? I've heard so many stories, but I want to know what made him, him." Sophie smiled, her eyes warm with memories. "Your grandpa was the strongest, kindest man I've ever known. He taught us that no matter how hard life gets, you can always find a way to move forward. He didn't just tell us how to live, he showed us, every day, through the love he gave and the life he built." Emily nodded thoughtfully. "I hope I can be like him someday." "You already are," Sophie said, hugging her tightly, "because you're part of the legacy he left behind." As the family gathered for a group photo that day, the camera captured more than just smiling faces. It captured generations of love, resilience, and the enduring impact of a life lived with purpose and heart. Though I was no longer physically present, my spirit was there in every connection, every laugh, and every moment of togetherness. My story had become theirs, a testament to the power of forgiveness, the strength of love, and the beauty of building a life worth living. And through them, my journey continued as years turned into decades. Marvin's legacy lived on through his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. The family he built became known for their kindness, resilience, and strong bonds. Sophie and Noah often shared stories of their father and mother with the younger generations, ensuring that Marvin and Elise's values were passed down. Family gatherings were filled with laughter, love, and a sense of unity that Marvin had always cherished. One sunny afternoon, Emily, one of Marvin's great-granddaughters, stood in front of her classroom to give a presentation about her family's history. She spoke with pride and affection. "My great-grandfather Marvin taught our family the importance of love, forgiveness, and choosing your own path," Emily began. "He faced many challenges in his life but never let them define him. Instead, he built a life filled with joy and surrounded himself with people who loved him." She continued, "His story reminds us that no matter what hardships we encounter, we have the strength to overcome them and create something beautiful. His legacy lives on in all of us, and we strive to honor his memory by living with compassion and integrity." The classroom was silent, the students moved by her words. Marvin's influence had reached far beyond what he could have imagined, touching the hearts of those who had never even met him. Back at home, the family continued to grow and thrive. The values Marvin and Elise had instilled became the foundation upon which each new generation built their lives. They cherished the memories, upheld the traditions, and most importantly, carried forward the legacy of love and resilience. In the end, Marvin's journey was not just about overcoming betrayal and loss. It was about the enduring power of the human spirit to heal and to love. His life served as a beacon of hope, proving that with courage and determination, one can transform pain into a legacy of joy and meaning. And so, the seeds Marvin had planted blossomed into a family tree rich with love and purpose, a testament to a life well lived. Thanks for watching Marvin's story. Would you forgive or walk away? Share your thoughts, like, and subscribe for more. See you next time.